I'd say I struggled with body dysmorphia for about the last 2 decades or so. I was very lanky, skinny, and weak as a kid. And it wasn't until around my senior year of high school, when I was around 18 years old, that I got into strength training and nutrition. And I would say this is around the time when I really started to develop body dysmorphia. It's funny because I've heard this quote that really resonated with me that says, the day that you start lifting weights is the day that you'll never be big enough. And I think this holds true for me and for a lot of people. I remember after my first few years of lifting that I had put on a bunch of muscle rather quickly. I went from probably around 130 pounds to 135 pounds at the start to maybe up to 175, 180 pounds. And I thought I looked massive at the time because I'd never been that big before. But eventually I started to feel really small and get self-conscious about my appearance. I remember being just stuck around this weight for quite a few years. And I'd say around my mid to late 20s, I ended up ballooning up to about probably 215 pounds at my heaviest. I was seeing a girl at the time and wasn't really living that healthy of a lifestyle when I was with her, and wasn't exercising consistently, was just eating a bunch of garbage and just drinking way too much booze. And I got fat. Maybe not fat compared to our society standards, but for me, I would have considered myself fat, where my waist was probably close to 40 inches and I just had like a soft look to me. And it was just not good. So I ended up having my weight fluctuate up and down since then, and mostly back down. And around 30 years or 31 years old, I had an operation on my nose and was able to do anything for a while. And I remember getting fairly depressed and had lost a significant amount of weight, because anytime I've been really depressed, I have no desire to work out and I have no appetite, so I will shrink rather quickly. And I probably went back down to about 190 pounds or so, which doesn't seem small, but for me that is, because I'm very tall and just the way I'm built, and I wasn't a ripped 190, so I looked, I feel like, pretty skinny at that time. Eventually I decided to bulk back up again and probably got to around 220 pounds or so at my heaviest. And this was when I was still 100% natural, because I didn't go on to TRT until right before my 33rd birthday. And when I went on, I started injecting 200 milligrams of testosterone a week. And I will say that it did put at least probably 10 pounds of muscle on me within the first 6 months or so. Most of what I had achieved, 95% of it, I had achieved naturally. But the extra testosterone definitely helped add some more muscle to my frame. And I did a dirty bulk around this time where I ballooned up to 245 pounds at my heaviest. And I was just eating way too many calories. I was pounding 2,000 calorie shakes just for one meal, and it was just way too much. So I ended up putting on more body fat than muscle, and you can see I put quite a bit of it around my midsection. So fast forward to about a year ago, I went on a 6-month weight loss or fat loss cut sometime around the mid to end of last year, and had gone down to, I think, about 212 pounds at my lowest, and was probably close to 10% body fat, I would imagine. And I could have kept going, but I just know I would have lost a good amount of muscle mass if I had tried to get well into single digit body fat, and just would have felt weak and not great. So that was as lean as I had wanted to get. Around the beginning of this year, I started to go back into a bulk again, and that's been going on for about 6 months, and I'm up to about 235 pounds. I'm eating over 4,000 calories a day, which is probably a little bit more than I need to, but it doesn't look like I put on too much body fat, so I'm not too worried about it at the moment. My goal is actually to hit an all-time high of 250 pounds, And then from there, go back on a fat loss phase and try to lose the fat while minimizing how much muscle mass I lose. And I'd like to get to ideally single digit body fat at around 215 to 220 pounds. So it sounds like a lot of work to do all this, and it really is. It's like a full-time job, and I was not blessed with great genetics, so I feel like I should look a lot better considering all the work I put in over the years, especially the last 5 to 6 years where I've been more dedicated than I ever have been in my life. But I try not to compare myself to others, but it can be hard when you look at these fitness influencers or whatever you want to call them, and they're all shredded and look huge and muscular. And the crazy thing is, too, is like I have more muscle mass than probably a lot of those guys. It's just, again, I just don't look as ripped. So I almost look smaller in comparison, but I'm a lot taller than a lot of these guys and just overall a lot bigger. Objectively, even though I feel small sometimes, I'm not a small person. I'm 6'3", about 235 pounds. My FFMI, which is your fat-free mass index, which is basically a better version of BMI because it takes into account not just height and weight, but also body fat percentage. And my FFMI number is around 25, and 25 is considered good. You have a ton of muscle mass. I know objectively that I'm not small, but sometimes I just feel like I'm too skinny in some areas, or I'm holding too much fat still, or this body part should be bigger compared to this one or whatever. And I just overanalyze and just am too critical with the way my body looks. I'm working on being less critical of it and not spending so much mental bandwidth on this, because there's so many more important things and issues in life than how your body looks, and it doesn't make sense to be worrying about this all the time. I would love to hear if you've ever dealt with any type of body image issues. Body dysmorphia could even be the opposite, like anorexia, which I consider basically the opposite of body dysmorphia, where body dysmorphia is generally you don't feel like you're big enough, or anorexia, you feel like you're too fat. If you've ever had any type of body image issues, love to hear about it, or if you know of anybody who's had them, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, and just what your thoughts are on this and on the video. So until next time, stay strong, warriors.